This is the first of two videos about subject-verb agreement. There are a couple of rules that it's helpful to remember when making your subjects agree to your verbs, but the first and most important rule is to make sure that you've identified the correct subject. Remember that in English, it's possible to stick a whole bunch of extra words between the subject of a verb and the verb, and that it's helpful to use the prepositional phrase technique to remove words that might want you to think that they're the subject of the sentence, but that actually are not the subject of the sentence. Once you've identified the correct subject, the first rule is what I call the rule of S. In other words, I made up the term rule of S, so if you Google this, I don't think you're going to find a whole lot. But I use that term, the rule of S, to remind us that while most verbs are not changed depending on who's doing them, I run, you run, we run, you run, they run, the third person singular verb, in other words, she, he, or it, will take an S. So she runs with an S, he runs with an S, or it runs with an S. So for example, I might say, the boy, one boy, runs, so I'll give it an S. The girl, one girl, walks, so I give her the S. Sometimes people find this confusing because in English, when we want to make a noun plural, like go from boy to boys or girl to girls, we add an S. And so logically, you might think that we should add an S to make a verb plural. But as usual, English is a bit of a weird language, and that is not true. So you need to remember that the singular subject, not the plural, which would be they, the singular subject takes an S. The plural subject, they, the boys and girls, for example, run, no S. That's the first rule. Now I'm going to add a little bit more to it. Remember that if we want to make a verb into the subject of the sentence, we turn it into a gerund. And we do that by adding ing to the verb. So I can take the verb to jump and turn it into a subject by writing jumping. And gerunds are always singular, and therefore they take an S too. Jumping makes, with an S, me tired. Now, the rule of S only applies to what we call regular verbs because regular verbs follow the rules. We also have what we call irregular verbs, which are verbs that do not follow the rules. The most irregular verb of all is to be. To be, remember, is the infinitive form of the verb. So if I conjugate it, if I attach it to different subject options by attaching it to pronouns, we can see that to be just goes off and does its own thing. I am, you are, she, he, it is, we are, you are, and they are. Now I want to point out that it would technically be more correct, if English followed its own rules, to treat to be like this. I be, you be, she, he, it bees, we be, you be, and they be. So this is just an example of how strange English is, that following the rules of English will sometimes be considered incorrect or just creative. I think it's pretty creative to try to act like to be is a regular verb. But onward. The next rule is what I call the rule of relationships. And this is the rule that we use when dealing with compound subjects. Remember that compound subjects are two or more subjects joined with either and, or nor. And this gets a little bit tricky. The first compound subject is when you use and is sort of the grammatical version of addition. If I say she and, you know that there will be someone else. In other words, you know that the subject will be plural. She is one person, she and her friends is more than one person. Another way to think about this is that the phrase she and her friends, if I wanted to substitute a pronoun, I would substitute they. And they, like, no S, the party. Things get more complicated when we're dealing with or nor. The most basic rule that you need to remember is that no matter what, the verb agrees with whichever subject is physically closest to the verb. So for example, the books or the pen stays in the drawer. There are two subjects, the books and the pen. The pen is physically closer to the verb stays, so the pen is what tells you that, according to the rule of S with a singular subject, it should be stays. Here's another example. Neither the books nor the pen stays in the drawer. In this case, the word pen is also closest to the verb, and so it makes the verb singular. And I forgot to point out that what I'm saying is that this rule applies the same way for or for nor. Here's another example, the boy or his friends. In this case, friends is plural, and so a plural verb does not take an S. Or the boy or their friend, the boys or their friend, singular, runs. So the rule is that whenever you have a compound subject and it's got an or a nor in it, you need to make sure that you make the verb agree with the subject closer to it. Now I want to explain to you why we have this rule. If you think about this sentence, the books or the pen stays in the drawer, that or is indicating that the books and the pen together will not be in the drawer. It's either going to be the books in the drawer or the pen in the drawer. And since in this sentence, we don't know which is in the drawer, the books or the pen, we would have a problem because books is plural, so that would make the verb stay. Here's what it would look like. The books stay in the drawer. And the pen is singular, so that, if it were the pen, would be the pen stays. So you can see that this sentence wants a verb to be both plural, stay, and singular, stays. And so the grammatical answer to that is, you don't know which one it is, can't look in the drawer, you gotta pick whatever's closest to the verb. Neither the books, plural, nor the pen. So you can see that, oh no, I've kept it the same, nor the pen, again, it stays. But look at this one, the boy, singular, or his friends, plural. So I've switched it. Now it's singular, plural, instead of plural, singular. Now I wouldn't know if it's the boy who runs every day or his friends run every day. So I just have to say, which one's closest to the verb? That's the one that tells me how to conjugate the verb. I can flip it, the boy's plural or the friend. You see how I flipped from the boy going singular to plural and the friends going plural to singular. We don't know who it is, so the grammar rule says just pick whichever one is closest to the verb. Finally, and this is where you're going to have to memorize a few things, indefinite pronouns can be singular or plural. What a pain. Remember that indefinite pronouns refer to someone or some group of people or something or some group of things, but it's not clear who we mean. There are a couple of strategies you can use to remember which ones are singular and which ones are plural. If the indefinite pronoun ends in one or body, it is singular. And if you think about it, that makes sense. One is literally singular. It's one. And body is singular because otherwise it would be bodies, right? So that tells you one, everyone, everybody, anybody, anyone, nobody, somebody, someone, and no one, all singular. The only other indefinite pronouns that are singular are each, neither, either, neither, and much. And you will have to just memorize those four. Each, either, neither, much. Each, either, neither, much. That's how I did it. I just said that all day for a while. And then finally, these indefinite pronouns are plural. Several. If I say several bunnies, you probably close your eyes and imagine definitely more than one bunny, right? That's how you know it's plural. Or few, maybe that's like 2 or 3 bunnies, probably 3 bunnies. Or both, that's 2 bunnies, plural. Many bunnies is, I don't know, like 10 bunnies. And others is plural. So I hope that this hasn't been too overwhelming and that it's helpful. If you have any questions, bring them to class. And good luck on the quiz.